Let's go ahead and get started. It is 10:02 a.m. on Tuesday, September 21st. My name is Christina Dillabo. I'm the Director of Communications for the Desert Southwest Conference. As usual, if you are not comfortable having your likeness both recorded and live streamed on our conference's YouTube channel, please remember to turn off your video, and you can always turn on your audio so you're still heard. If you type anything through chat, I would love it if anybody else brings that to my attention because I might miss it. So the first thing on today's agenda is about Hispanic heritage resources from DSC-RACE Coalition. And as I said in my email invitation for everyone, I invited Efrain Zavala to join us to talk about what the bullet points are. The first item was the Power of Latino Leadership video conversation that already happened, but it was just published on the conference's YouTube channel last night, and I didn't include the link to it in case there's still some edits that need to be done, because like I said, I just published it last night. So once it's all ready to go, everything's going to get linked. The September 25th Justice at the Border panel discussion, September 27th beginning of Crafts with Kids on Prescott UMC's Facebook page, and the October 4th Immigrants and the Bible video conversation. All those items are going to be linked very soon, even if it's a scheduled for post type of thing on the DSC-RACE webpage, which is linked on the conference's homepage. But it might seem a little like, well, what do I do with this? I mean, I'm a church communicator. That's great that the conference is doing this stuff, especially the recording that already happened. How am I supposed to use this at my local church? So that's why I invited Efrain to join us and talk a little bit about how you communicators can share it, how you can spread the word and explain what's the significance of it, how your pastor can utilize it for greater ministry impact. All sorts of good advice for us and insight from Efrain. I welcome you to go ahead and turn off your microphone, Efrain, and tell us about those resources that are coming up. And if you want, I can share my screen to show the list of items.
Sure, that'd be good. That'd be good. Thank you. Well, I was going to say I was very happy to participate in the leadership conversation. I agree. I thought it went very well. I really enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed the questions. And we're going to have that available, or like Christina said, that is available for people to watch. One of the things that we have to remember is that with these conversations, there are going to be resources available that we can just promote in our conference. In terms of the leadership conversation, of course, we talked about Juana Bordas, who is the Hispanic activist that really, we were discussing her work and some of the things that she has shared. She has some books that she's published, and one of them has to do with Latino leadership, Hispanic leadership. And so you can make that available for people if anybody is interested in your churches. The idea is that for Hispanic Heritage Month, and you know, Hispanic Heritage Month goes from September 15th through October 15th. The Hispanic Committee and the Race Coalition have talked about releasing a some video or some resource every week. And on the first week, we had the Power of Latino Leadership, of course, just like we talked about. Next week on Saturday, no, it's this Saturday, actually. Sorry, this Saturday, the 25th, from 1 to 2:30 p.m., we'll be having this conversation, Justice at the Border, here at the church. And what we will do is we're gonna stream that live from our church Facebook page, but we'll also make it available through the. We're going to share it through the conference's social media as well. And we're going to record that conversation and make it available in the conference's website. I have a little poster here that you probably won't be able to see, but it's, it gives some details. So I'm going to read this for you really quick. Just to tell you who the participants will be. One of the participants is Professor Ernesto Todd Mireles, who works at Prescott College, and his work revolves around Chicano. There you go, Christina, you're so good. Thank you. Chicano activism, and he'll be talking to us about justice and what that means in our current context in terms of the border and immigration. We will also be having immigration attorney Margot Cohen, who works with Keep Tucson Together, and she'll be talking more about the legal aspect. And then finally, we'll be having two dreamers. They are in the DACA program, Franceni Gardea and Sergio Gonzales. They'll be talking about their experience and what their hope is for the future, right? In terms of the work that they do, their own personal kind of journeys or families. And Sergio works with education, so he'll be talking about that as well. And so I think it's going to be a great conversation. We'll be, like I said, we're hoping to get a few people here at the church, but I'm glad that we're blessed with the technology to just kind of share it to more people. So that's going to be next week. I'm sorry, this coming Saturday. And then on next week, we will be having every day we'll be releasing a video on crafts. Just kind of, my wife is she's got a background in early childhood education, and she'll be making some crafts that are related to Hispanic cultures. And so she actually was careful not to do just Mexican crafts or Mexican culture, but she's reached out to friends from other Latin American countries, and they've talked about some of the crafts that she could be doing. She's going to be very brief. She'll just be doing the craft and talking a little bit about it. And this is primarily for kids to be exposed to Hispanic heritage. And then finally, on October 4th, this is conversation we already had. And Christina, I sent you I believe I shared that with you, the video. Were you able to get it?
Oh, you know what? I forgot that you were sending it to my personal email, so I will look for that. Sorry about that.
So we had this conversation just a few days ago with Kevin Gonzales. And Kevin Gonzales wrote this amazing book, The God Who Sees. And it's the subtitle is Immigrants, the Bible, and the Journey to Belong. And in terms of how you can share this conversation. We're going to share that online. But you also can just share this resource with people. This is a great book that you can discuss, at the end. One of the chapters has ideas for action and reflection. So you can very easily have some kind of book study around this material. We did have one here at the church, and we had for a few weeks we were discussing the book, and then on the last session, Karen Gonzalez joined us, and she kind of talked about it. Was all via Zoom, and I thought it went so well that I thought we got to make this available to more people, and we invited some pastors to participate on it. But you can easily just lead a conversation. It has some very interesting questions, some reflections about the Bible, and just how our faith and our tradition informs the issues around immigration. So that'll be available as well. The conversation, I think, is about an hour and 15 minutes. So, you can share it with people and just share this resource. And I think at this point, what we would really appreciate is just, different churches are different. So you'll know how to better engage your church with this material, these conversations. But I think the idea is to just kind of create awareness that there is Hispanic Heritage Month, that not all Hispanics, the Hispanic community is really a very diverse community. Um, and that there's a very, particularly in our context here in Arizona, there's a growing Hispanic community, and we as churches need to find better ways, more creative ways to engage with them. So that's really the conversation that I'm hoping our churches will have at this time, and not just Hispanic Heritage Month, but beyond, right? But this is just a great opportunity to do that. And those are the resources that we have. I don't know if you guys have any questions or comments.
Okay, so I noticed, I would have assumed that, since Hispanic Heritage Month started September 15th and it goes through October 15th, I could see from a local church perspective, maybe there's a little bit of frustration, like, well, why wasn't this stuff released before? So I could use it right on September 15th. The key thing to remember, just like when it was Asian American Pacific Islander Month, that's just the time frame for, hey, let's have some cultural awareness. It doesn't mean that that's the only time that we should care about this. So all of these things, they were previously recorded, and that's a key component, I think. They're not the DSC-RACE Coalition, Prescott, UMC, Efrain, nobody's trying to set the schedule for every single local church in the Desert Southwest Conference of you will work on this during this time. It might not be the best time for you guys. You might be busy doing other work, and that doesn't mean that you don't care about Hispanic Heritage Month. You might be doing something else already. But these are great resources that are available to your leadership, to the entire church ministry. I know the Power of Latino Leadership video, for example, Jim attended. He really appreciated how great of a program it was. The takeaway is on this one in particular, and I think some of these other ones can be used the same way, you can share it with your pastor, with your church council, however it is that your church works, so that the leadership in the church can see it and have a discussion about it afterwards. Like, what does that mean for how we do ministry? How can we be doing ministry in a different way to be more inclusive, to think about the people that are not like, in this case, I happen to be Mexican, so it is the people like me, but, whatever the situation is. And yes, it's speaking specifically about Hispanic Heritage Month, or Hispanic heritage, which, as you'll learn from watching the video, that's not just Mexican. It's all sorts of different, I guess races, ethnicities. I don't know which one it is the right one. But even things like that, those questions that we might have that seem like embarrassing or silly questions, if you never share that question, you don't have the opportunity to be enlightened, to learn more. So even just those questions would be great to have in your church leadership because of watching a video like this. And
I think that's also, think about all the other things that have been done, right? We had Black History Month. We had important conversations about that. We had Asian American Pacific Islander Month, and we had important conversations about that. And now we have Hispanic Heritage Month. So we really want to, we want our churches to have an idea that there's a diversity in our communities and in our churches, right? That we need to be mindful of, that we need to affirm, and just kind of understand that this is, this is the way our our communities are developing, and I believe this is God's plan for our churches, to be diverse and to be inclusive of people who are maybe different from us.
Yes. That Power of Latino Leadership video has something for everyone. I think in your church leadership groups, it talks about, for your outreach teams, maybe they'll explain a little bit about how even Hispanic culture, it's not just everybody's the same. In my own family, my parents are different. They were first generation, well, they were born in Mexico and then moved to the United States. I was born in the United States, but felt like I lived in little Mexico at home because we only spoke Spanish at home. My children are not being raised where it's only Spanish. So they're a different culture than me, just like I'm different than my parents. That kind of stuff would really help the thinking as your outreach team is developing a strategy for specific audiences. There's something for everyone. You got to watch it and see. It might just be something that you watch in a staff meeting and have a discussion, and it could be something that you give to your different ministry teams so they can watch it and see how it's applicable in their context. And it could be something that you watch as a congregation and have a small group discussions on it. It's different for every church. Do the book study. It's a great resource, and I think the rest of these resources are going to be just as valuable. I do wish I had them all ready to go for you in advance. They will be ready very, very soon, I promise. And I'm going to share my screen real quick so you can see where you will find them when they are available. Always start out with dscumc.org, and then if you go to DSC-RACE Coalition, that will bring you to the page where you'll find all those resources. It's not up to date just yet. I'm going to work on that today after this Tuesday talk, and we'll have some stuff ready to go. Questions about any of this? Go ahead, Jim.
I told Efrain in the meeting there last week, my interest in this was the church that I happen to belong to, Mission Bell, United Methodist Church, is predominantly in an Anglo area, but the area around us is quickly growing into Latino. And my interest is trying to encourage people or invite people to join the church. They join our food kitchen and food pantry, but we don't seem to be able to encourage them to join our worship services or Sunday school. So obviously we were looking for ways of doing that.
And, okay, so we won't get into the more details about the resource. You're going to need to watch and see what you can glean out of it and the upcoming resources as well. Thank you so much, Efrain. If you have some closing messages that you want to say about the resources, you're welcome to. I know you're busy with your church ministry, so if you got to get going, that's fine too.
These are just things that are made available to the churches. I know I've appreciated the resources that have been made available regarding Black History Month, AAPI, month, and so you gotta like I said, different churches are different. You gotta figure out how you're gonna use these resources, what they mean to you. It may be that you either just buy the book and read it, or you kind of listen to the conversation. It's really the resources are out there, and you'll use your discretion to just kind of see how you use it, how you invite your community to use it. And I just want to thank Christina for her support, for helping us with, make these resources available for our conference, and the Race Coalition and the Hispanic Committee in our conference. We're working to make these kind of conversations available for people to participate. We know these can be difficult conversations, particularly conversations regarding immigration, with everything that's going on. But we really want to model conversations that are conducted with compassion, with grace, and with an open mind, right? Open minds, open hearts, open doors is really what we're about. So thank you guys for your support, and thank you for just kind of helping us get the word out regarding these resources.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Efrain. Okay, guys, so next item is about Facebook. So we had a discussion via email, and I think we slightly touched on it last week about Facebook in the church. You know, what are the pros? What are the cons? I know many churches out there struggle with the same situation. You know, who's going to manage it? And what do we post? What's okay, what's not okay? How often do we post? So I was hoping we could have a group discussion about it. I do have some notes to share with you guys and some recommended YouTube videos for you to watch, depending on the situation. But for a church that doesn't have anyone that can manage the Facebook account, so whatever the situation may be, maybe there's no staff at the church, because we do have really small churches where the pastor is the office manager, the everything. So what would we say to a church that is struggling figuring out, well, who's going to manage it? Should they have a Facebook page? Thoughts? Come on, guys. You know, you're thinking something, whether it's, you know, go ahead, Jim.
We have kind of a, what would you say, multidisciplinary type of thing. The church secretary is the primary person that does that, but I get to do part of it, and we have two other people in the communications type of it, volunteers. These are all volunteers that get to do, you know, posting events and so forth, and we've given them that capability. But it seems to work, but obviously every once in a while we end up with somebody either duplicating or subtracting from in whatever way. But I still think it helps to have a primary contact and let that person decide.
Okay, that's helpful. Go ahead.
I'm Mike Wilkerson, by the way.
Hey, Mike.
I have a question about the usefulness of Facebook at this time, because there's been a lot of criticism of Facebook lately. Wall Street Journal's done a series of articles recently where they've really put down Facebook and what's been going on. And I wonder if the popularity of Facebook is declining, and if we can have the functionality that we need for communications through web design, through web interfaces to host events and things like that in lieu of Facebook.
I'm going to jump in, but any opposing thoughts, please, or additional thoughts, please share. I'm going to look into the articles from Wall Street Journal. I haven't seen those, but look, you know, so I've got 3 kids. They're all grown-ups now. My youngest is 18, and I know we went through a phase where they basically stopped using Facebook. They didn't get rid of their profiles, but they stopped using it, and they were using Snapchat and other things. And of course, right now, obviously, I'm talking about young people, because it's different for different groups. And maybe within the past year or two, I think it started probably with my oldest son, who is 24. Yes, 24. And turns out he still does use his Facebook page or profile, and he just doesn't use it as his primary social outlet. He probably uses Snapchat more than Facebook. They're definitely all on TikTok. They're doing all sorts of other things. Instagram. Sometimes they come up with their own little something called discourse. So that's like their own closed social media group of just those people that they've invited, and it's usually other students. But anyway, so it still is being used by young people. I know that older people are using it. I mean, you see the traffic on Facebook. There's a ton of people still on Facebook. So although many people are kind of annoyed, especially as as, oh my goodness, my brain is blanking, elections. When we get into election time, it's the same thing as watching television. It gets really annoying with all the ads supporting this candidate or that candidate. But I think especially, with COVID still in effect, we're still not able to see each other the way we used to. I don't think social media, even Facebook, is going anywhere for a long, long time. There's going to be new channels, but the likelihood of our older demographic switching over. Go ahead, Shelley.
Oh, I just wanted to tag on to kind of what you were saying. Like, I have friends down both sides of the political aisle, and I see a lot of people complaining on Facebook about Facebook, and I see people on both the left and the right complaining that Facebook is biased against the left or the right, but they're still on Facebook. They're still venting these concerns on Facebook, and I'm not really seeing our interactions on our church Facebook page go down at all. Like you were starting to say, Christina, I think especially with the older demographic that has attached to Facebook, and this is the thing they know how to use, to leave Facebook at this point would mean that there'd be something else new that they'd have to learn. That, I know that I myself had to draw the line at some of my daughter's other social media outlets. She's an adult now too, so I don't have to monitor it, thank goodness. And I'm not even, I'm middle-aged, so I can only imagine how someone 20, 30 years older than I must feel about having to learn a new thing.
Yeah,
I think Facebook is going to be here for a while.
Yeah, so we're basically establishing Facebook's going to be here for a while. But the second question was, couldn't you do a lot of what happens on social media just with your church website? And so that's it. Maybe you can incorporate, chatting on your website for logged in members potentially, and sharing all the stuff that you would share on social media onto your website. But a big, huge difference is if you're focused only on your website, then you're really focused only on those people that are already connected with your church, or you're hoping that a Google search is going to bring people to your website. And the thing is that not everybody is looking for a church. I mean, your target audience isn't just going to be people that are specifically looking for a United Methodist Church near me. Oh, there's that church. So, especially during COVID, some of our churches ended up increasing their attendance numbers, their worship viewership online dramatically. And it wasn't with people necessarily in their neighborhood. Sometimes it's people around the world that have continued to attend and maybe are engaged in other ways, online only. But your social media, should you have it, should you not have it? How does it compare to your website? You really have to go back to the thinking of that your website is like your church building, and the front of the building is kind of telling people a little bit about what your church must be all about, or kind of what it's like, and that's like your website. Well, nobody's going to stumble upon your church building unless they're actually right in front of it. So social media has that capability of bringing your church or a post from your church in someone's stream as they're going through their social media stuff. Yes, Betty.
And stumbling across the church is part of the thing that I encounter with the Facebook page, in that I'm fairly new as the communications person here, and Facebook is one of the many arms of the communication area that I got. And our Facebook page has not been kept up to date, and to stumble across a page that is extremely out of date seems counteract. It doesn't seem like it's going to do any good. It seems like it would do more harm than good. And I'm one of the people who said, if there is not someone who can keep the page current, is it a valuable tool or is it a deterrent? And so it's just, because in my opinion, an outdated page can be problematic.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly your church campus, you wouldn't let it just get all fall apart and weeds growing like crazy and broken windows. It's a priority. You want it to look inviting and engaging for the surrounding community, for someone to feel comfortable and safe and welcome to join and participate in that church life. So it would be the same thing on social media. You don't want to leave it unkept, but just like in real life, you wouldn't close your church building or sell it if you don't have the means to take care of it. You'd find a way, right? Go ahead, Mike. You guys don't need to raise your hand. Just unmute and join in.
Okay, well, another thing that, along the same lines, another problem that I see with Facebook is that it gets hacked frequently. Many, many times a month, I have, friendship requests from people that are friends because their account's been hacked. And so that kind of goes along the same lines of your image or whatever on Facebook is being degraded because somebody's hacked your account. And the technical support available from Facebook is non-existent, unless you buy some of their hardware products like Oculus Rift or something like that. They don't provide support. So that's another reason that I'm less encouraged to use Facebook.
Yeah, so that's valuable, very, very valid statement. And so again, I'll have you think about your church building. It easily could get broken into. It could be vandalized. Bad things can happen, and we need to do our part of taking care of our building, making sure it's safe, whether it's getting security or locking doors or installing cameras, whatever the situation is. For Facebook, I'll look up what are some of the best practices for keeping your account secure. But I know changing your passwords having a schedule of maybe every 6 months to change your password, that could be helpful. Using a different password for your different types of logins is also a really important thing to do, because if they got into one, chances are they're going to get into the others. Watching what type of email invitations you get, or even in Facebook Messenger. I won't click on, if somebody sends me something on Facebook Messenger, oh, hey, check this out. I thought of you when I saw this. Even if it's someone that I know, even if it's a family member, I will not click on it, because I don't know what that's going to take me to, what that's going to open up. Is it an executable program in there? I don't know. And maybe it's not possible for them to do that on Facebook Messenger right now, but I bet you it will be possible. So it's just err on the side of caution. You wouldn't just allow any stranger to walk into your house, and you wouldn't give someone your bank account information. So, you really got to do the same sort of thing online with social media, with your email accounts, and frequently remind your members about some of those best practices, so those cautionary tales that your church is not going to be asking you for money via Facebook Messenger. Last week I shared that I had a newsletter article with some really good tips that you could glean from as a newsletter article for your congregation. I forgot to send you guys a link, but I think I did that this time. So you've got it. It's probably the very last link, because I was really embarrassed that I forgot to send it to you guys. But it's there. Take a look at it. It's got some great suggestions for what to say in a reminder to your congregation, whether it's from the pew, in your newsletter article, or on your website, wherever it is that you would communicate best with your audience. So I still think it's an important place for the church to be. That's my opinion. I think it's, it's kind of like, I'm not a pastor, so I'm going to apologize up front, but I think about, scripture and how Jesus wasn't telling people to, come in and meet me at this temple at this time on this day, and I will talk to you about what God says for you, or the promises of heaven, or I don't know, whatever. He wasn't doing that. He was going out to where the people were, all over the place, in way out in what seemed like the middle of the desert, and in the city square, and wherever they were. And so people are in Facebook. So that's our calling, to go out and make new disciples. All in, what is it? I had a scripture too that I wrote down. Come follow me and I will send you out to fish for people. Matthew 4:19. How does that link into what I just said? I had it all in my mind. I didn't quite link it well. That's okay. I think you guys will forgive me. The big deal with social media, yes, you want to have a presence there. And there are tools. I'm going to send you guys links to a tool that will help make it easier for you to publish more information, or not more information, but have a steady stream, if you want, of information on your website, on your Facebook page, on your Twitter, on your Instagram, whatever it is that you're using. That'll come from, let's say, United Methodist News channel, or from the Upper Room. Maybe it's their daily post, whatever it is that makes sense for your church. You could have more than one. I'll send you guys that link. It's called If This Then That, IFTTT.com. I'm going to send you guys a link to the beginner's video. It's a tutorial on how to use it. It's so easy. I use it for the conference's Facebook page to share denominational news. And so I'm not the one that's every day going in and publishing this stuff. And it goes out more than once a day sometimes. So I use that. You can use it to also automate from your church's Facebook to your church's Twitter, from your church's Facebook to your church's Instagram, from your blog to your Instagram, whatever it is. It's a very powerful tool. It's free, and there's also a paid subscription for it. I use it only for free, so I know it works, it's reliable, but you do have to be careful with what you want to automate. So I used to have it set up to automatically publish anything that we publish on the conference's website, so as soon as we put an article up, that it would share to Facebook. That wasn't always appropriate, because sometimes it was just an article about, we moved the meeting room to somewhere else. And it seems kind of weird on Facebook. So then you have to pay attention and then remove posts if you're going to use something like that. So be careful with these tools. They are powerful. I have some ideas for how you could use it, but I'll send you guys those links that I'm talking about. And also the YouTube channel for If This Then That, because they've got a ton of other ideas and news about what else is coming out. If you're wondering about, I think there's a woman named Nona Jones that I'm going to send you guys a link to one of her videos. She's I don't know, I think she's like a famous person. She works for Facebook, but she talks about how the church can use Facebook and why the church would want to be on social media. She is also a pastor. Her husband's a pastor. She's an incredible speaker. I'm going to send you guys a video of hers that I recently watched. It is an hour long, but the whole hour is not her talking. They'll introduce her, and then she talks for about 30 minutes. Very powerful, some great ideas, great explanations about details with the how Facebook works. And she explains how you think about Facebook as your home. Your church's Facebook page is the home, and the Facebook groups would be like your living room. So people can see and get a glimpse of what your church is like by your first Facebook page, but then you invite them to a group or your living room to build that relationship and talk with the other people in the living room. She's got some incredible ideas in there. She talks about how, I don't know if you guys know, that you could change your Facebook group or page to have a different template, so you could have learning modules in there, which would be great for like Bible studies or building a spiritual development plan. And if the cool thing about the learning modules is you set them up in the beginning, or at any point you can create them, and then they just run on their own. It's up to the individual to go through that learning module, to watch that video, to read that book, to answer the questions that come up. She talks about how there's things like polls that are available, both for groups and your page. That's a great engagement tool for your church's Facebook page or groups. Just asking if you're thinking about doing a sermon series or a book study, or you're wondering how comfortable people are with getting together in person if we're outside this fall. You can have a poll for that, and that's going to increase that engagement and that discussion. Sometimes you'll see churches posting things like, if the world could no longer have one of these 3 foods, which one would you be okay with giving up? Pizza, Chinese food, or ice cream? I don't know why those 3, that's a weird combination. But that's another weird way of creating engagement. And it might seem like, what does that have to do with my church or ministry? It kind of doesn't, other than building relationships. By doing something like that, you could see how you could start conversations with that. And when you see people then in person at church or online watching worship, now I could say to Chris Kroger, because maybe she also voted to let ice cream go, now I'd have a connection with her where maybe we didn't know each other before, and I could say, hey, yeah, ice cream, right? I'm lactose intolerant, what's your deal? So now you can have that connection in a really easy way that's no commitment, no scariness of like, oh, what did I just sign up for? But it's just a opening for a friendship there, so that maybe she could help me or I could help her in our church family, spiritual growth. So I'm going to send you guys a video that has 44 social media post ideas that for churches that won't get ignored. Great ideas in there. And for our smaller churches, there's a video that I'm going to send you as well that's a 3-step social media strategy for small churches. Super basic. I wrote down, basically it was how to stop the scroll, start meaningful conversations, and provoke spiritual practice. That's it for that video. So now you don't have to watch it, but it's not a long video, and there's a lot of really good details in there. Shelley, do you have your hand up? Go ahead.
I almost hesitate to spill the secret just because I don't want everybody having the same exact content that we do on the same days. But last year, this company brilliantly sent me like a 2-week free trial period of things. It's called makeiteasychurch.com. And they have pre-created social media posts, verbiage, prospective verbiage that you're free to change however you want, and a little calendar for like what time of day to post these things. And they sent me 2 weeks worth of content last December, but they had it scattered throughout the month. So it was like 2 or 3 posts a week. And I loved it. And so I signed up for it in January. It was like $99 for the whole year. And every month then on the last week of the month, they send me a zipped folder of the following month's content. And so every Friday afternoon, I just sit down and go on the Facebook Creative Suite thing and schedule it to our Instagram and our Facebook. And I don't always use all the images they send. Like last Saturday, they had an image that it said something about let's get back to church, but it showed a lot of people in close quarters without masks holding hands. And we're not quite there yet at our church. So I felt like I didn't want to misrepresent how things are at our church right now. So like I didn't use that one. or it'll say like, see you in worship later today, and I'll add on what the worship times are, and how to access our online worship if you'd still rather do that. So it's very easy to work with, and it has really saved me a lot of trouble having to find, because that's time consuming too, having to find the content before you even get around to posting it. I mean, it takes me not even a half hour on Friday afternoons to just plug it in, drop in the wording, change it up a little bit, next. So, and it does have some of those posts, like you were saying, like which of these candies needs to go, and you wouldn't believe how much discussion erupted around like your favorite Christmas music, and like, yeah, it does get a lot of engagement. And you know, sometimes I'll schedule a post to go up and go, yeah, really, and then yeah, it ends up getting all kinds of conversation just on the post. So make it easy, church.
Awesome. Thanks, Shelley. So I'll be sure to include that link, excuse me, in the post-meeting email. Shelley, what church are you with?
St. Mark's in Tucson.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Quick. Another good resource that I use a lot for posting, and I post to multiple channels. So like I'll post to Facebook and Twitter and Instagram all at the same time, is Buffer. Also free. And you can pick what time it goes out, and you can schedule for forever in advance. So that's a tool that I use a lot for our social posts.
That is super helpful. Let me read that. Yeah, so that's a great tip. I mean, if you don't have a lot of people helping out, it doesn't take that long. You could plan on one day and even schedule out, all I can do is 2 hours. We'll see what I can do in 2 hours to schedule the week's posts, or at the very least the weekend's post, or however it is that you announce worship coming up. One of the big deals, it's .church, not .com. Make it easy .church. Gotcha. Thank you. Yes, it's important to get stuff out there, and scheduling is a great way of doing that, to be able to manage it if you're a one-person team. But this is a church. It is a group of people, not a one-person show. So, recruit your small groups people, your missions team people, your UMW, your United Methodist Men, any of those small groups that you have in your church could be Facebook groups for your church's Facebook page. And so then that each of those committees now could have that charge of, you need to have someone scheduled or assigned to post on your group's social media each week. And it could be that there's not something happening new for each group each week, but maybe then they take turns posting a prayer for the day, or sharing a scripture and opening up a conversation about it, sharing their favorite moment from that small group, something interesting that they learned because they're a part of that small group, or a new friend that they made because of that small group. All sorts of stuff. Watch that video, 44 social media post ideas for churches that don't get ignored. I'm sending you the link. He goes bam, bam, bam with idea after idea. And a lot of it is things like what Shelley just mentioned, sites where they'll have a daily post available for you. So take a look. It's going to be very useful time spent, I think. But don't forget that your church social media is not, or you don't want it to become a broadcast channel. It's supposed to be, think of it more of a social ministry. You need to have that engagement. You need to have that conversation. It doesn't have to be with just you, but, one of the really cool tools with Buffer or Hootsuite is you can set it up so that you get a notification when somebody likes. Same thing with Facebook too. You can get an email notification when somebody comments on a post or shares something. So that'll trigger you to know, if you want to be super responsive, go in and check social media real quick to see what they said. Is it something that you can just like? Is it something that you need to respond to, or ask someone else, hey, from our men's group. Bob, that's in charge of social media for the men's group, somebody posted something about the upcoming event or about the prayer that you posted. Can you respond to it? So make sure that you do have, recruit in that way, if nothing else, with your small groups, and ask them each to be in charge of posting, but then they also have to be in charge of moderating. And that's also doing the response messages, but it's also paying attention to who are we letting into this group. Next week, I'm going to show you guys a little bit of how to find out if someone is legitimate or if it's just going to be a crazy profile that's just wanting to get in to cause all sorts of havoc. It's not always bad people. Sometimes it's just people with a sense of humor, and they want to post shocking things or controversial things, stir the pot a little bit just to make their day. Sadly, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to create disciples and build relationships, not scare people away. So, it is important to figure out who it is that we're letting into these groups. And there's different ways that we can set up the groups so that they're private or public or even secret. But anyway,
I wanted to say that I appreciate the resources that you're sharing and that Shelley mentioned, because part of what I'm in the process of having to address is the fact that our current Facebook page was connected to a previous pastor's personal Facebook. And so we need to shut that one down and start a different one if we're going to have one. And so this is helpful. And so I'll be looking at those things that you're going to post to see if it's something that I can accomplish or what I need to do.
Yeah. Go ahead, Shelley.
Does the previous pastor still access their Facebook? Because if so, they can go into your Facebook page and add another person as an administrator and then remove themselves. So you don't have to shut down everything and start over from scratch. That's what
the problem being that he can do that with the church account, but it's still attached to his email. Does that make sense? I mean, it was a page within his page instead of a separate page.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a tricky one there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't the way he intended it, but that's how it came out.
Yep. All right, guys, we've got about 5 minutes left, so I think we're going to need to move on.
I do have to leave because I have
no.
So can we do that?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
So I wanted to get to the local church questions. We're going to skip to the what do we do if, or how do we go about sharing our local church news with the whole conference or with other churches. So how can I go quickly?
Let's go. Yeah.
Okay, so for the conference, if you want to share news from your church through the conference, you have to think about if your news is something that really is applicable to churches that are not in your same state, churches that would need to fly to get to your event. Are they really capable of collaborating with you if it's a missions event, missions project? So for it to be conference-wide news, it has to be something that churches can collaborate on that's unique, different than what they're already doing. So if it's just a food drive and anybody can donate to it, well, many of our churches are doing food drives already. So that's not different than what most of our churches are already doing. So it has to be unique. It needs to be something that's applicable for the whole conference. Sometimes it's something that's unique, but it could work out for area churches, especially like we had one recently where they had several organizations that are donating food, and so this church is just trying to make this food accessible. They're going to have hundreds and hundreds of meals ready, and other churches can partner with them to distribute the food or advertise that, hey, go to this, if you're looking for food, here's a church in our neighborhood down the street or 2 miles down, however far it is. So that might be a district-wide news. And there's other items that make it possible through the conference or district. And I'll look for those, and maybe I'll try to include those in the response email. Did you have additional items, Carla?
Yeah, for what Christina said, we kind of go, I'm sorry. I've gone this whole time with no phone calls, and I've gotten 2 since I turned my mic on. I apologize for that. Cynthia Satchel, Cynthia Holly, who is the administrator for the East District and the South District, and myself, who's the administrator for the North and the West, we pretty much follow the conference guidelines. And if you send us something that needs to be advertised more locally, we will respond back to that. The exception would be things like what we talked about earlier this morning with Efrain's event that they're doing. That's something that you will see advertised in today's district newsletters. And also if you have something that's a story on a ministry that you're doing at your church that you might like to share, a success story, we'll probably publish some of those things. My suggestion is, if you have something that you think could be published in a district newsletter, I would just encourage you to send it to Cynthia or myself, and we will let you know if it's something that we think is appropriate. And we talk to the district superintendents to make sure that they want us to publish those things too. So it's not just us making this decision. And I apologize, I do have to go start another meeting right now.
No problem. Thank you, Carla. Yeah, so just prepare your news, send it in and see if we can share it. Sometimes it's just a learning opportunity for other churches. It's not something that we're asking for help or need collaborative partners, but we found out how to get this great grant, and this ministry was possible because of it. So that's a great article that other churches could learn from and would appreciate. So think of it that way. But we do have a media list that I could share with you. Just send me an email if you need that. Right now, I have to admit, it is out of date. I'm working on getting it updated, but it's better than nothing. So if you haven't already received a media list from the conference communications, and so that would be like radio stations, television stations, newspaper outlets in your area, let me know and I can put it together and send you that Excel spreadsheet. Prayer requests, let's see, what can I do? So prayer requests always go to the district superintendent first, because they need to have that opportunity to provide pastoral care first, and then it's the district superintendent that lets me know it's okay to send that prayer request. And prayer requests are about clergy and their family, and it goes out to our Desert Southwest Conference clergy. So it's not a public outlet. It's not something about my neighbor or anything like that. It's just about conference clergy to conference clergy. Oh no, it's 11 a.m. I have other items to share. So last thing that I'll share real quick, if our clergy that are watching this, if you need help with your @dscumc.net account, email account provided by the conference, contact me and I'll get you connected with our IT support. In some instances, I can just help you real quick, but I need to give approval to our IT support to let them know that yes, they can bill us for the time where they're helping you one-on-one. It's 11 a.m. I try to make sure we're on time, start and stop. So there's other items to be shared, but I'll send those via email, things that we didn't cover that you want to talk about next week. Send me an email and I'll be sure to include it in next week's. Okay, guys, sorry to have talked so long. Hope you have a great day.